We are live.
Yay! Thank you for being here and for giving the right signal that we are live.
Yeah. The right
We're
and
here.
proper signal.
There you go.
We had other options.
But we chose the proper one, right?
Yeah. We chose the
Thank.
right and correct holiday one.
There you go.
Yeah.
So here we are super fortunate to have Dr. Anthony Mattis with us. He's an amazing access consciousness facilitator. Most of you know about him. We're going to talk a little bit for all of those that are going to see us now or in the future. And you would like to know a little bit more about him. So could you please tell us how long have you been in access?
I've been doing access for 12 years. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about leaving access?
Leaving?
Yes.
That's so cute. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I feel like I have the lie detector test.
I had to be the first one there.
I have electrodes hooked up to my fingers, so this is truly a lie detector test. Have you ever thought about leaving access? No, no, not ever once in the 12 years. And because like the results that I got, the joy, the happiness that I got along the way, every step of the way, just has been so incredible that, you know, I wanted to take this work and share it with the world.
Love it. And I've heard, or we've heard, that you started access with your whole family, with your kids. Was it easy for your kids to join you, or they were a little bit doubting? How was the process?
In the beginning, well, back then they were, you know, so back then at the time they were 11, 9, and 3. So my daughter, you know, it's like wherever I went, she went because, you know, their mom passed away. And so I was a single father raising 3 kids. So, and the boys were great. They actually loved it. I wasn't quite sure about it in the beginning because, you know, being a holistic chiropractor as a professional, you know, I did a lot of different modalities and stuff. So by the time I found access, I was sort of like, my point of view was that I'm a lost cause. And maybe I have found something that could maybe help the kids to sort of maybe change sort of the way I look at it, the generational curse or the DNA of mental illness from being passed down to the next generation. So I thought I was a lost cause, but the kids loved it so much. That's what inspired me to keep going back. And then it was like my very third class, Access Consciousness Bars class. It was the third class where like my whole world got rocked, literally. And I was like, in that moment, I knew that there was something to this work and that I had to at least do it long enough until I got to meet the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, and the co-creator, Dr. Dane here. Because Dane, like me, was a chiropractor. And, you know, his story was that before he found access, he was suicidal. And so with, you know, my wife, the kid's mom, committing suicide, that was obviously something that piqued my interest. So I knew I needed to at least meet them before I decide if this work was really for me. And it took me almost 2 years before I met them because I'd finally gotten out of credit card debt from all the other modalities that I studied. My point of view was, if these tools really work, the money will show up. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, the money showed up. And I was like, Jesus, I'm like, okay. And then I finally met them. And my whole life changed when I met them because they kind of like took me under their wing, so to speak. And so I've been working closely with them for the last 9 to 10 years. And like my whole world has changed, you know. And it's now that the kids are older, though, it's interesting. They're 23, 21, and 15. So I guess just like anything your parents do, there always tends to be some sort of rebellion that goes on. You know, I guess that's what kids need to do to sort of find and discover themselves. And sometimes I may parent from the space of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, because I mean, my point of view is I'm like, these are the best natural, holistic, non-invasive, non-medical tools that exist out in the world. And I know there's other modalities that work for a lot of people, but I tried a lot of those they didn't work for me. And I have no doubt in my mind this can change the face of mental illness on the planet. And this will create more consciousness in the world if people were willing to receive the work. Worst case scenario, it's something that could actually bring people together and families together if they could learn something simple like Access Consciousness bars. But there's so many other resources that Access has available. So many, anything from everywhere from like money stuff, things on abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, gaslighting, things with body issues. You know, there's just so many different possibilities and resources that we have available for people and access that pretty much change almost anything in your life that's not working for you.
Love it, love it, love it.
So like when
And
I
you,
see the kids as young adults, sorry to cut you off. When I see the kids as young adults, I'm like, dude, how come you're not using the tools? And they're like, they're a little bit arrogant sometimes. They're like, I am the tools, Dad. And I'm like,
ooh, which is true somehow.
to a
Probably they are
degree,
already. Yeah.
until they're not using the tools. You know what I mean? I'm like, why did you? So anyway, I mean, God, goodness. We even have stuff about ghosts and entities and things like that. I mean, like, you know, I mean, how does it get better than that? It's part of my wife's suicide was that, you know, I'm going extreme here, but it was like, when I was like, why are you trying to kill yourself? And she's like, I'm trying to kill the demon. And I'm like, where's the demon running around the house? Do we need to like, you know? And she's like, no, it's inside of me. And I'm like, what? And, you know, because of what the things we were doing at the time, we were heavily involved in the church. I'm like, that's not possible. You have Jesus, you know, and that wasn't her point of view. And so now, since I've been doing Access, I know without a shadow of a doubt, we could have saved her life, hands down.
And how much easier it would have been, right? The first time I talked to the entities class, I was like, oh my goodness, it's way easier than I ever thought. So
Yeah, it's not
probably,
crazy. It's not.
yeah.
There's crazy people who take those classes, yes, but when you work with a facilitator who teaches it in a very pragmatic way, you can see where it actually fits your everyday life. I'll give you an example. My son's an actor, and he was doing an audition with another actor in this region who actually has a haunted house. It's like a real legitimate haunted house.
Wow.
And my son's freaking out. And I'm like, dude, what are you freaking out for? Use the tools. He's like, no, Dad, no. You know, I'm like, you remembered the tools when you were 10. And now that you're 21, you like, so, and I was talking to the homeowner and, you know, I'm like, look, man, you obviously have a capacity for this sort of thing. Cause he's had demonologists come to his home. He's had mediums come to his home. And I'm like, look, what I do is I'll empower you to know what you know, so you could actually have ease, because not all of them want to leave. You know what I mean? Everybody's always trying to clear them out. You know, they have choices. So I know we're kind of going on a different topic, but the tool. I'm only bringing this up because the tools has helped me in so many ways, and they're available for everyone who's struggling in whatever area in their life. You know, and this is an area that's uncharted. Nobody likes to talk about it. And when they do talk about it, they only tend to focus on the bad parts of it. But this is a whole other universe that nobody looks at. And that's what that particular body of work of Talk to the Entities brings to the table for people.
And it's so amazing to have a facilitator like you that has so many modalities or so many specialties available, because if you are in a 3-day body class and there's something related, I'm sure you can also move it, because sometimes that affects your body itself, like if there are entities, demons, or whatever, and if you just try to go without taking that part of the equation,
right,
things are not going to change. So
that's right.
That's the beauty of having a facilitator that has so many tools.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just really pragmatic tools to change anything in your life that's not working for you. And with you and I doing a body class, you know, we have this body class coming up in Bluffton, South Carolina, and really the class is about a lot of different things, but one of the things it's about is helping you to get more in communion with your body, really listening to the information that your body's giving you every second of every day of your life and for the rest of your life. But people don't know how to tune into what their body is telling them. They just expect it to work automatically, which it does in a lot of cases, but we're not really in question with what our body requires and what our body's receiving as far as like information. And so, and that is actually an awareness that people have that they don't even realize. So as far as, you know, dealing with the spirit world, but they also have things over here. It's like, you know, a lot of people are so out of touch with what their body wants. You know, they only focus on this part, the taste, right? You know, it's like, I know it wants this, you know, so they're like, "Rah," right? And then it's like, once it goes past here, then the body's like, asshole.
That is not what I was looking for.
No, it's like, you know what I mean? So, and it's okay. I do it too still, you know, but it's like, at least, you know, I don't know. The whole idea is to really get us in communion with our body so we could actually have the joy of embodiment. And not just in in a hedonistic way, if that's what you choose, but it's not just for that. It's not just to indulge in like, well, you know what? Fuck it. Why not? Why can't you indulge in the lust of all your desires, right? You know, I mean, it's about the joy of living, you know, and this is what this is about. And so many people aren't enjoying their bodies. Most of us are using our bodies as a source of judgment or a source for judgment.
And I was going to say that because it sounds easy, what you just said, like this is for the joy of living. And for many people, it's like you're talking Disneyland World, like
That's
joy
right.
of living is what do you mean?
I know. Yeah, you're right. You're a
But
good
to
point.
me,
Because I would have been like, fuck you, asshole. Fuck you. You don't know my life. You don't know what I've been through. I would have said
exactly,
that
but
12
it's
years ago.
possible. It
Yeah.
is possible. And
Yeah.
I love to have this conversation with you because um, it's not only in your life, it's your whole family that you guys have been together going to the joy of life, joy of embodiment, this incarnation. So this is beautiful. It's not only for adults, it's also for the kids, for the whole family. So
Yeah.
everybody's invited, right?
Yeah. Everybody's invited. And you know, you know, I have a heart for children. I always have, you know, if I could, I'd probably have 100 of my own babies, you know, and adopt a
Wow.
bunch in between, you know,
Don't
but you
tell Julia.
know,
Probably too many.
yeah, well, I've had a procedure to make sure that's not possible, but I'm just saying, like, I love kids
Good
so
for
much.
her.
But when they become teenagers, things start to change, you know, and God, you look at the world today with everything that's going on, and teenagers are struggling, you know, like I mean, they're not having a good time. They're struggling. And to me, it's worse than it's ever been. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons why, but I know without a shadow of a doubt that if the teenagers participated with these body classes and just receiving bars, that it will create this sense of empowerment in their universes that they won't be able to get anywhere else. Because right now they're just trying to find ways to fit in, to belong, maybe to be desired once their hormones are kicking in right now. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it's like, you know, they want to be loved or attractive to someone. And it's like, what if this work can create the space where you actually start to see yourself as the valuable product, not because you look like a supermodel, but because you are a powerful, potent being and you are attractive and beautiful in your way, whatever that way is. And the more that you be you, the more that you utilize your gifts and talents in the world, you become attractive, you become beautiful to everyone. And so to me, like, I didn't have that growing up, you know, I was very insecure. Shit, I was very insecure all the way through my adulthood and I still am to a certain degree, right? But
No kidding. Seriously.
yeah, sure, why not? You know, this.
Remember, we have the lie detector.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, well, that's why I'm confessing. I'm confessing to Sister Carolina.
Good
Please
boy, good
forgive
boy.
me, for I've sinned. But no, yeah, and but like if children can get these tools at a young age, you're truly sowing the seeds of consciousness in their world. And I know certain parents are like, but does this fit within my religion? You know, and I'm like, it doesn't fit in anything. They're tools. Do you worry about whether or not the hammer and the screwdriver in your toolbox fits into your religion, it's the same thing. But it just has to do with tools to help you deal with life, tools that will help you to be empowered. Who the hell wouldn't want that for their family, for their kids? And so I think it's a great family thing. It's wonderful. And I, I know that it will empower children and even adults who have had a rough go. And we have great resources for abuse too. I've watched abuse melt out of people's universes and be able to see what's actually possible for their life and living, because the abuse does not have a stronghold on them any longer.
Wow. Wow. Imagine that. Something that it affects your whole life and then melts that out.
That's right.
Amazing.
And it doesn't just happen overnight. You know, I want to say that. I mean, it's a process. For some people, it does. Like with Dane, like Dr. Dane here, the co-creator of Access Consciousness. When you hear his story, and he has it on YouTube somewhere, if you subscribe to the Tour of Consciousness, you'll hear his story. But he was suicidal. He even planned the day of his suicide. And he had his bars run one time. And he woke up the next day and the thought of suicide was like not in his universe anymore. And then, you know, now he's, you know, since then, that was what, 23 years ago, he's become the co-creator of Access Consciousness, which is now in 179 different countries around the world.
Wow. Well, I'm going to ask you something because I had a class with you that was out of this world. I'm not saying that everybody's going to have the same experience, but this was like
you can if you want to.
Exactly. I was a very mental person, so I never thought this could happen to me. So if that happened to me, it could happen to everybody if you choose it, as you just said.
What happened? What happened to you? I
remember the lie detector. I cannot lie.
Yeah.
When you came to Atlanta, we called you for X-Men, which was an amazing class for parents and kids, and amazing. And you told us, what if we created a bars class? And I remember that in the class, every time you were getting close to me, I felt that my chest was compressing, and I dared to tell you, please don't walk close to me because this is too much for me. And then he says, just receive it. And we started moving a little bit, some energies. And then I started feeling like I was shaking.
Yeah.
And when I was running the bars, I was telling the guy that I was running the bars too, I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable. I can see that my hands are not shaking, but I feel my body and my hands shaking. And he goes, I don't know what's going on, but keep on doing it because this is extremely new to me. And then I started moving like crazy. And then you said, don't worry, relax. You're vortexing. And I was like, what is he talking about? So tell us a little bit about it, which I never expected from a bars class. So any class, great things could happen.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're basically accessing the space of you. You're accessing your being more in a way that you haven't either done before or maybe did a long time ago but have forgotten. So when that happens, it's the energy in your body and also your being. It starts to sort of become invigorated. It starts to, it's like gets infused with this tsunami of energy. And when you're not used to that, the body actually starts to shake. And some people will be like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I feel like I'm going to be out of control, or, you know, or you feel like yeah, you feel like you're going to have like an epileptic seizure or something like that. And so it does happen a lot with people. It happened to me back in the early days, and I didn't know what was going on. And they were like, you're vortexing, you know, you're actually accessing the space of you, your being. And it was really beautiful. And then once you relax into it, it's so beautiful and magical that in those moments, it's like all the things that you thought were your problems, they begin to either disappear or they shrink. And I know for me personally, when I've gone through that and perceived those energies, it's like the things that I thought were problems become completely insignificant. And so when that happened back in those days, for me was like the suicide of my wife wasn't consuming my life anymore. The suicide of my wife and the choice and the fact that I was busting my ass every day to raise 3 kids, to get them off to school, making them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, picking them up after school, making sure I'm home on time, getting the babysitter, all that stuff. Like all of that was like, it became okay. And more importantly, the space of possibility began to open up for me. Like, in that moment, I realized, like, you know what? I don't have to just get by. I don't have to just have a normal, average life. Like, I could thrive. And there is something that's available for me that I didn't think was possible, because I figured, okay, I'm a widower. I'm raising 3 kids. My focus is the children. My focus is to make sure they don't get fucked up from this situation. Right? That was my point of view. And then I started to realize, like, wow, I could actually have a beautiful life too. I could actually have a life that's thriving, not just surviving.
So it's kind of breaking all that big, heavy thing that didn't let you see
Correct.
your potency.
All the stuff. Yeah. And then it started to build my confidence in me. I'm like, wow, is that really me? I'm like, is that the power of me? Is that the potency of me? Is that what I actually have available to me when I use these? And I was like, wow, this is like really magical. And I know it sounds hokey, and it used to sound hokey to me back when I first, I just wanted to get over my grieving. You know what I mean? And do things that were relaxing. That was I didn't know it was gonna like completely transform my life. I didn't know that I would have like awarenesses, these major energetic downloads of awarenesses that are like, and that you can't really put into words, but are so grand and glorious that it's like, wow. It's like, wow. And then when you have that show up, and then you see the things you see on TV, or you're scrolling through Instagram and all this crap that's going on in the world, it's like, they have no idea what else is actually possible. They have no clue. And that's why it's up to us. That's why, Dane wrote this book called Being You and Changing the World, and it's like, that's why, it's like, this work is about empowering you to know what you know for you. Right. And being you, and not from a place of like, oh, I'm going to go and help everybody I meet and transform their lives. No, not at all. It's really about you being you, and then you become the inspiration of possibilities, not the perspiration of possibilities trying to fix
Please.
Right? Well, because nobody wants to be fixed. Nobody cares, right? And everybody's like more interested in being right about what they're doing than really just being aware of what will create.
Wow. And do you think, Dr. Mattis, that once you're at that space with everything that you have changed in your life, the classes that you took, in your classes, you are a space for all of us to be that? I'm asking you this because this vortexing happens to me in your classes, and maybe Dane's classes too. And we have like friends here in Atlanta, they said that sometimes you even do like this and my body moves from the distance. So it's like,
yeah, well,
it's because you are creating that space for the class?
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for that acknowledgement. And let me just say this, okay? That's not the objective, right? That is there is no objective in the class. The objective in the class, actually, if there was an objective, the objective in the class, if someone was to choose to come, is that you have a greater awareness of how your body's communicating with you. And you know how to gift and receive these amazing body processes. And the things that you and I are talking about right now, they may show up in those 3 days, or they may show up later, like down the road. Because for some people, it may just be creating space and opening and cracking that door. But they may not perceive it in those 3 days. Those 3 days might just be about like knocking on that door and trying to get that crack open, you know what I mean? So then as they do work with the tools, as they go home, then all of a sudden, boom, they start to access that space that we're talking about, right? So I don't want people to be like, everyone's going to be vortexing by the end of this class and full of orgasmic energy. And it's all because of me, Dr. Anthony and for Nicholas Mattis. No, it has nothing to do with. So, so yes, to answer your question in terms of the space that I be. And
you open that space.
Well, I invite you to that space. You open it. I invite you.
You make it available and we choose it.
I say, here you go. Yeah, you chose it. Carolina, you chose it. You were ready. You were ready. And hold on.
I chose it very scared. Okay, go ahead.
No, you weren't scared. You were excited.
No. I was scared. But then I let go. Oh my goodness, I was freaking out. But then it was amazing.
I'm excited because I'm spitting now. But anyway, spit's like flying out of my mouth all over the place. How does it get better than that? It landed right there on Sabrina, the translator. It was like, it didn't get Jenny Lynn. I see Jenny Lynn over there. We didn't get it. So if I get more excited, I might get you too. So it's a good thing you're not in person. But no, well, it was, look, sometimes when that happens with people, they get angry. And
no kidding.
And yeah, it's interesting. So you went to fear. Some people go to anger, right? And so I believe I had this conversation. So I'll share with what I said with the person who was angry. But I remember, I think I asked you, are you scared or excited? And you weren't really sure, because sometimes we misidentify fear with excitement, because they both feel the same. Our heart is accelerating, right? Our heart rate is increasing, right? And there's an unknown. And we tend to go to fear when we don't know what's going to happen, especially when the heart's going like that. But in order for you to get to that space, you have to have this, it's because you're perceiving something.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, you were making me the source. I wasn't the source. I was contributing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because of your ability to receive and be aware of it is why that started to occur. Okay. So what I'm saying is, don't make me the source. Was I a catalyst for it? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because of your willingness to A, be in the class, B, do the work, C, ask a question, D, be vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is what's going on. What is this? Can you help me? Right? And I'm like, cool. And all I did was help you to not misidentify and misapply what it was. It wasn't fear. There was no grizzly bear chasing you. You weren't getting carjacked in Atlanta. It was energy moving. It was a tsunami called you. But you had no idea how to control it because it bypassed your beautiful, wonderful intellectual mind of yours, because you couldn't put it into a box.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's all of it. It wasn't like, Anthony, because of the space he is. Yeah, that is part of it. But that's also because of the work I've been doing for the last 12 years, And I always ask a question. I always ask, what energy, space, and consciousness can I be for you, for the class participants? And what energy, space, and consciousness can I be to gift only what the participants are willing and able to receive? You are willing and able to receive that. Now, someone who maybe be perceiving the same energy, some of them get angry. They're like, I'm angry. I hate you right now. So, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, is it anger? Or are you misidentifying and misapplying the potency you've been covering up for so long?
Wow.
And they were like, oh my God, that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Here's a pillow. Scream into the pillow as loud as you can. And they would take the pillow and they'd be like, ah! And then guess what would happen? Then they actually got to enjoy that potency that was moving through their universe. And I say universe because it's not just the body. It's also the being that's receiving too.
Oh, wow. And do you think it's super interesting, because probably you told me and now I'm getting it like 4 years later. It's true. This feeling of fear is also excitement. And sometimes when we choose a class, you're like, oh, I want to go to that class. And then right before the class, you're like,
Yeah.
ugh, and you start like creating so many excuses. Is that the same type of thing? That maybe it's not fear,
Sometimes.
it's kind of like, I don't want that change to come. I'm kind of backing out.
Yes, and there's so many other reasons why. A lot of times it's because of the change that people are going to go through. Look, there have been some classes that I've been at that kicked my ass. I didn't have those vortexing experiences in some of other classes, right? Not all classes are going to be like that. Some classes you feel like you're a boxer in the boxing ring and you've gone the 15 rounds of boxing and someone's just punching you the whole time, right? But that's what was required in order for those limitations that I haven't been able to change ever with any modality, with any psychotherapy, with any motivational seminar from any motivational speaker. I was getting my ass kicked energetically, and that's what was required. And so I even forgot. So what was your question when you asked before I went on that little tangent?
If that feeling that you have before certain classes, like you want to go to the class, but then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
no, I don't want.
Thank you. Yes. Sometimes people are aware that they're going to get their asses kicked. Not from me, the facilitator, from the energetics. They're going to get their asses kicked. You know what I mean? And so what I say to that is, if you have that show up for you, that's the class you want to be at. Yeah. That's the class you need to go to, because that's going to be the one that's going to start you on that journey of all your limitations beginning to collapse.
When I understood that, I decided to pay for the class. Once I perceived that this is a great class for me, I pay it, because then I don't want to lose the money. So when I start creating excuses, I'm like, I already paid, I'm going.
Good for you.
Sure enough, it's tough, but it creates more for me. So yeah, I get it. What would you tell a person watching this? It's going to be their first 3-day body class. They are thinking, should I go? Should I not?
It's going to be so much fun, because I kind of share funny stories about my first 3-day body class. It's kind of like your first, like when you lose your virginity, for most people, it was kind of like weird, uncomfortable, funny, hilarious. And then all your crazy friends tell you all these different things before you do it. Oh my God, I have so many funny stories to share. We're going to have a good time. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come with questions. I love to answer questions. All right. I know what it's like to be starting out. I know how it feels to be scared. I know I had the point of view, like, these classes cost so much money. I don't know. Is this going to be worth my time? I had those points of view too. And you know what? Every time I invest, look, I was a single father. I was only working 25 hours a week in my chiropractic practice. I wasn't in my office all day long, because it was more important for me to be home with my children. I didn't have the money to go. I didn't have, especially the advanced classes, like a body class and then choice for pop. I didn't have the money. But you know what? I started to study the money tools and access, and the money would just show up. For the first time in my life, money would fucking show up somehow. And I'm like, and I studied Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all this other shit, and nothing, still struggling. So what I say to people is, use the tools. There's awesome books out there. If money's a problem for you, buy the How to Become Money workbook, and Money's Not the Problem, You Are. And we're going to have a lot of fun. That's all I can say. And I'm open to questions. I'm open to facilitating you to know what you know. And my hope always is for you to feel more empowered when you leave after the third day than you did when you first came in.
And that is so true. And thank you for that. You're a very, very generous facilitator. Sometimes in a 3-day body class is mostly quiet time and body's receiving. But I haven't seen a question that you haven't answered really caring and thoroughly. So thank you for that, because that's really a gift, especially when we're starting, and sometimes we're in loops and we need answers. So thank you for that.
I've been there. I know what it's like.
So thank you, everybody. We're going to have an amazing class with Dr. Anthony Mattis in South Carolina, January 12, 13, and 14. And we hope to have all of you there. We're going to have Spanish translations. So if you're a Spanish speaker that says, I would like to be there, but I'm not going to understand all these amazing things that he's going to say, we're going to have Spanish translators. And if there are other languages that you guys want to include, if we have enough people, we would include that language too. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Mattis. Thank you for being that space. And we're so happy to see you next year to start an amazing year with you.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Jenny Lynn. Bye. Mwah.